My name is Lumka Mbele. I am the mother to Thabang Vuyo. Oh, he was a very sweet child, very sweet, very loving, and he was an outgoing person. He liked sports and he liked to entertain people. Thabang played basketball when he was still in Mafeking. But then when he got to Potchefstroom, he realized that there was no basketball. But because of his sportsmanship and because of his excellence in sports, he then decided to join rugby, and he excelled in rugby. I feel very angry and bitter about rugby, because if you let your child go and play rugby, you've got to make sure that you supervise your child. And if rugby is played at school level, there's always a danger that the child would get hurt and even die. Look at what happened about a month ago. A child in the Eastern Cape died while playing rugby. He was the same age as my son. Thabang died 20 years ago today, 2002, while he was playing rugby at Potch Boys.
So on the day of Thabang's passing, what had happened was we were playing at a tournament at CBC Boksburg, a rugby tournament, and it was a pre-season rugby tournament, and all the boys wanted to get into the groove, especially the fact that the school was ranked 19th the year before. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, we continue that momentum of keeping Potchefstroom Boys High in the top 20 schools in the country.
And I have not even found an answer why Thabang was playing in another province when I'd sent him to the Northwest School in Potchefstroom.
But unfortunately, you know, hardly 5 minutes into the match, I think Thabang was one of those influential players that he always likes to make a statement early on in the match. He was kind of like what we call an enforcer in the sport, where once he set the tone with those big hits, he was very, you know, famous for making those big hits. You know, he had very, very broad shoulders.
The school denies culpability. The school does not want to admit the fact that they were wrong. They forced the child to go and play rugby in Johannesburg, in another province, even though the doctors had declared him unfit to play because he had suffered concussion 2 weeks before while playing in Johannesburg.
And the fact that he went in for a tackle that early on, you know, was not a surprise to many of us. And but the unfortunate thing was that after he made that tackle, and it was, you know, not even one of his biggest tackles, one must say, and you know, he just lay there and didn't move. But you know, play continued until the referee realized that this guy is not getting up, and you know, then the game was subsequently stopped. They got in the medics. We waited and waited until a helicopter was called in, and he was pulled out via helicopter to Mill Park Hospital, which is the closest hospital, private hospital to where we were. And as rugby players, I mean, at the time we didn't think much of it, especially at school level. All you thinking is that he's probably got a knock and whatever, and you know, we'll make sure that we win this match for him, you know. And we played, we finished, we won the match, we sang all the way back to school. But getting back to school, we realized that this guy is not here. You know, that's when the penny dropped that, you know, this is actually quite serious.
The school never informed me about anything or even his travels. Incidentally, this particular accident happened on a Monday afternoon. I was expecting the child to be seated behind his desk studying. He was a matriculant. But I got surprised when I received a call saying that the child had died, or not really died, he was lying in a critical condition at Mill Park in Johannesburg. I couldn't understand why. The school never informed me. In fact, I was supposed to have signed a form releasing my child to go and play in another province, but the school never told me anything about that.
We've had many other instances where direct blunt force trauma to the head can be lethal. Fortunately, the way that rugby is played, that doesn't happen very often. I mean, that really is an exceptionally rare event. The concern more for the sport now is the impacts that unfortunately don't reach that threshold but are severe enough to cause concussion, so they result in visible signs of some sort of brain injury, and the cumulative effect of those. So it's less a case of a single blow and more a case of a build-up of injuries and impacts over time, and the particular danger seems to be that if you have two relatively close to one another, so-called second impact syndrome, so a player who's had a blow to the head, maybe had a concussion that wasn't recognized or was ignored and then continues to play, there would be significant risk in those instances. And again, that's why education is so important, to help people recognize and remove cases when they occur.
A child cannot really refuse to play, and at that age, you know, especially when it comes to rugby, it's a manly sport. They want to be seen to be, you know, up and about. Maybe the teachers and even the matron should have cautioned him against playing because he had suffered concussion before. They should have taken responsibility not to field him, not to force him to play. But they took him to Johannesburg to go and play, even though they knew that he was unwell. So I cannot place the blame on the child himself. He's a mere kid. He was a kid then. He couldn't have made such a decision. The coach should have decided, not, or the principal for that matter, or the matron. They should have decided not to field him, but they did. So I cannot put the blame on my son.
I'm never forced to play rugby. I think if you've been in a rugby school or in a rugby culture, you know, I think it's the highest honor of any school pupil or school student to play for the first team rugby.
I would like to add that I need to find justice for my child. I'm not after money. I'm not looking for money. I want justice for my child. Because even where he is at this present moment, I think he is unhappy about the fact that I did nothing about his case. I never followed it up. So I would be happiest if this matter can go to court. You know, Neil Aggett's case came up after 20, 30 years, but he still found justice. And I also want an inquest to be held on the death of my son. If anybody can help me do that, I would be very happy. I'm not sure whether the Department of Education takes any blame for the death of my son, but what could happen is that it is quite apparent that the children are suffering and the children are getting serious accidents while playing rugby. Maybe the department should take care of that as well. Mothers are suffering. Their children are dying while playing rugby. You send your child to school to go and play rugby. The next minute you get a message that your child had died. It's really tough.
You know, and I think it was one of the most painful things. I mean, we grew up with this guy, we got to school together, we were new boys together, we went through all the different phases of teenagehood together. And to lose one of your warriors, one of your troopers on a rugby field was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in the sport.
I have not seen the records. The school has not given me any records, medical or otherwise, of my son's condition or why they forced him to go and play. They can't even produce the letter or the sick note that the doctor had given him, declaring him fit to play. They can't give it to me. So, unfortunately, there are no records pertaining to this case because it is claimed This is an old case. But death is death. My son is still dead even now, and I don't have answers.
I mean, rugby is in my veins. I love the sport. I love the contact. And it taught me how to release, like inner anger, but it was what our coaches used to call you need to have controlled aggression. You must be aggressive, but you leave it on the field. After the match, we're all friends, we shake hands, we share a drink, we share stories. And for me as well, it was a sport that gave me a lot of opportunities. I got to travel the world. I got to meet a lot of people in different parts of the country and the world as well. So, for me, rugby will always have a spot in my heart. It will always have a soft spot in my heart. I love the physicality. I love to see men colliding, at high velocity. But then there's the downside of it where, people get hurt and all sorts of things. And we need to see how, the two can, merge, still be value for money, be an entertainment, but also be safe enough for people to participate.
I got a lady who managed to come through and say she'll do a pro bono for me. That is why I am still asking for an inquest. That is why the case is with the NPA at this present moment.
The National Prosecuting Authority has sent the docket back to the SAPS in Boksburg. The investigating officer is arranging appointments with other witnesses to obtain their statements. Some of the witnesses are in the Northwest Province. Once those statements are obtained, the docket will be taken to court. The case remains to this day open.
I indicated that I would like the matter to be handled in this way. I would like an inquest to be held on the death of my son, because as much as it is indicated that the two sides collided on their stomachs or their chests, Thabang still died of brain hemorrhage. How does one hemorrhage in the brain when you collide with a person on your chest? Doesn't make sense. And the police, for hiding that docket for so many years, I would like to know why. Who were they protecting? Thirdly, I would like the school to admit that they were wrong. Admission from the coach, admission from the principal. They were wrong in fielding Thabang on that particular day. They should have allowed him to recuperate. Recuperation for concussion cannot take 2 or 3 weeks. It could be a month or more. So those are the things that I really want. I want to see an inquest being held. I want the NPA in particular to take this matter to court so that we know who made the mistake and why that mistake was made.